Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Confident and Killing It podcast. It's your girl, Tiwalola, and I am here to wake you up to the greatness inside of you, to help you master your mind, believe in yourself, and show up in the world. So let's get into it. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Imani-Lara Lansiquot, and she is a Team GB athlete that has competed in the Commonwealth Championships, the World Championships, and the Olympics. And she has received medalists across all of those three championships. She's also the third fastest woman in the UK. How amazing is that? She's also a TEDx speaker, and her love for fashion, arts, and music and culture sits at the heart of everything that she does. And she moves with a certain sense of purpose and inspires so many people around her. So, third fastest woman in British history. So crazy when you actually think about it. How does it make you feel?
Honestly, it doesn't make me feel any different at all. I think one thing I talk about with athletes a lot is this sense that when you're in it, you don't appreciate how amazing it is to like a normal person. And I feel like I've been working towards this for so long, and my next goals are like, okay, how do I become even better? Can I be number 2? Can I be number 1?
Yeah.
But I think the day that I retire will be the time that I look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I did that, you know? But genuinely, I find my sport, because there's so many highs and lows, which you've mentioned in it, and high performance in itself is such a massive and difficult thing. It's very humbling, and I live my life with so much humility that the accomplishments that come with it are just kind of extras, you know?
Yeah. So you kind of stay like eyes on the prize.
Yes.
And anything extra that happens, it's amazing, but it's like you can't let it get to your head.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. But where's the balance between like learning to celebrate yourself and, you know, and like acknowledging how far you've come whilst you're still on the way to where you're going? Because if you completely ignore all your past accomplishments, then you know it can make you have imposter syndrome and insecurities. So how do you find that balance?
And that's something you and I have actually spoken about in the past. It is so hard, especially like I said, when you have highs and lows, and sometimes you're in a period of failing and you don't know how to draw from the positive or draw from the past, because in sport, often you're only as good as your last race, or people externally will see you as good as your last race. And so it's hard not to listen to that. I think for me, I would say that like grounding myself in the process of becoming and all the good things that come with that, whether that's confidence, lessons, self-belief, listening to what my values are and respecting that, throwing myself into the becoming of what I want to be and not obsessing over this moment where I arrive, is where I say I celebrate myself the most.
Yes, and I think that is so key. It's a process. Life is a process, it's a journey, and growth is actually in the process, right? It's not just at the finish line, but it's in what happens to you as you climb that mountain.
And celebration is in that process. I think often the end goal, the medal, the record, the whatever it is probably quite an anticlimax. And the whole process towards that is what makes it beautiful and amazing. And it's hard to love that process and at times. Like there have been times where I'm literally banging my head against the wall like, why is this not happening? But I look back on everything. I was saying this to someone yesterday. I look back on every decision I've made, the tough ones, the good ones, the bad ones, and I don't have any regrets because I've learned from all of them.
That's so beautiful, because when things aren't going your way, it can be so easy to just be like, I want to give up, I'm done with this. Like, so let's talk about those days where things aren't going your way. And, you know, maybe your alarm goes off and you really don't want to get out of bed. You just like, honestly, it's raining outside and you have to get up and go train. What goes in what's happening in your mind as you're in those moments?
Right. So for me, I have those moments all the time, by the way, but I don't know whether it's like an ingrained thing and whether you can relate to this at all either. I've never really given myself the option not to show up for myself.
Oof, that's good.
Do you understand that? I'm sure that you do. And that's a mindset that I can't imagine not having. It's been there since I was a child and it's with me now. So sometimes showing up for myself is like a 4 out of 10 because that's all I literally have to give on that day. But I'm still going to do it because I don't have a choice. I don't have an option. I don't know whether it's the way I was raised or where I come from, but I will always try to show up for myself every single day. It doesn't need to be this 10 out of 10 superwoman version of myself, but it needs to happen. And especially this year with the Olympic Games coming up and just my career in general, the things away from the track that I want to achieve, I know that it's going to take that level of showing up for myself that I need to do. So if it is not like the most incredible version of myself every single day, that's okay. And that's a part that I'm at peace with, but it's going to happen to some extent.
Oh, I love that so much. Showing up for yourself isn't always 100%, but it's better to show up on the 40 at least and like give yourself a chance rather than always waiting to feel perfect and 100% ready.
Because you won't move if you live life like that. You'll just be stuck still.
Literally. And I think it's so important for people to realize that that's the thing with perfectionism. It's like if you are waiting to feel ready or you're waiting for things to feel perfect, you're going to be waiting for a very long time. And the more you delay it, the bigger the challenge becomes, the bigger the problems become, right? So it's just always better to just like take a chance and show up. Even if you're scared, even if you're nervous, you just always give yourself a chance to show up.
It's not even if, it's make sure you do it in those moments. Never not do that. That is the one thing I would say I've learned in my career. Like taking that bet on yourself, even if you don't always see a return on investment, is the best. Like it's the best thing you could do for yourself, career-wise, life-wise, relationship-wise. Like taking a risk and stepping out of that box that sometimes we like to neatly organize for ourselves is the thing that I would encourage everyone to do, like every day.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned kind of like your upbringing and, you know, not knowing where you necessarily got that from, but going into your upbringing, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was raised by my dad primarily. My mum raised me up until I was about 8 years old, and then she moved away, and then I kind of had just my father figure in my life, helping me kind of forge my way and figure out what life was going to be like as a young girl. And that's quite a different story as well. Like I feel like most people, especially from single parent homes, it's usually the mum that will take on that responsibility. I think maybe in modern times it might be changing, but for me, definitely, I was always the only person that I'd ever heard of that had gone through that. And I don't know, like me and my dad have an extremely, extremely close relationship, and he's done such an unbelievable job at raising me, especially as a young woman, because it's hard for him to know where to fill the gaps and everything. Sure. But I think in some ways, and this is an interesting thing to say, I'm not sure how you feel about it, but like it kind of shattered all kind of glass ceilings that I might have had on myself as a young woman, because I was raised by a man, which is interesting. And so I don't know if maybe he kind of raised me as like his son, but for me, like doing sport, for example, was something that he really encouraged. I never would have done that if my dad didn't push me. I never really saw myself as kind of disadvantaged. I never saw myself as kind of like the stereotypes that come with being a young teenage girl growing up. I feel like having a father figure to look up to made it easier to navigate. It did make it easier to navigate because I saw so much of myself in him. And he was paving the way in his career, in his life. So I would say that it actually served me as an advantage and made me extremely kind of independent and strong and really kind of, this is one thing your mum kept saying in her episode with you, like laser focused. And I didn't really get too distracted by other things. And I really do have like my dad to thank for that.
I love that. And it's so beautiful to see how you've turned that kind of moment where a lot of people would use that to disqualify themselves or use that as like an insecurity, you know, not having your mom around, but actually you've looked at all the amazing benefits, you know, being with your dad and him raising you, and look how much of a beautiful and incredible life you've had as a result of that, you know. So I think that without you even knowing, or maybe you do know, and maybe whether it's something you did intentionally or not, but that is part of the mindset of a high achiever. It's like when you're in a challenging situation, you're looking at, okay, what's the benefits here? How can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? What is the value that this experience has taught me? And, you know, being so close to your dad in that way and him inflicting some of those really powerful values on you has really helped you in life and in your career, right?
And one thing I would say is that I'm not like a rarity either. I remember learning about this in my degree. I did a psychology degree, and there was one particular lecture where they discussed children who have their mothers who leave, because obviously the mother-child bond, not even daughter, the mother-child bond is so important. And I think the majority of the children that had experienced that kind of, let's say, loss or loss of the parent moving away actually turned out to be high achievers. And so it isn't just like, oh, you know, I have this special thing in me. I genuinely believe that many things, many challenges that we grow up having often serve us in a positive way if we allow them to. Because we are built to protect and to kind of survive. And you'll find a way to adapt and survive and utilize anything that could challenge you to your good.
And that's the same with entrepreneurship, actually. When you look at all the, you know, famous entrepreneurs, or a lot of the millionaires today often came from very challenging backgrounds. And I think, you know, we all want to say we're strong and we all want to say we're resilient, but oftentimes we don't want to go through the situations that actually bring resilience and strength out. You know, and it's like, you can't just say you're this. It's not just happy, clappy, positive affirmation.
I wish.
You know, if you want to say I'm a wise person, you have to go through experiences where you have to figure things out.
If you, like, I have faith and I'll pray, I want bravery, I want to be strong. Like, God isn't going to give you situations like, he's not going to be like, okay, here you go. This is it. He'll give you,
delivered to your front door.
You wake up in the morning, I'm brave now. I genuinely believe, like, you'll be sent situations that challenge your bravery, challenge your strength, and that's your opportunity to step up and show that you have that within you. And I feel like often, especially with affirmations and things, we're searching for answers or searching for this thing that we want to be, but often it is literally living there already. And that's something you literally used to tell me all the time. You're already enough.
And I feel like you live and breathe that. Like, part of seeing the way you see yourself and always willing to bet on yourself is because you know you are worthy of that. So for anyone who might not know, Imani was part of the Confident and Killing It group coaching cohort that I ran, I think, a year ago. And that's how we actually met, right? And it was so great coaching you and just seeing the changes and the positivity that came from that was really beautiful. But I think knowing your worth and just knowing that you matter simply because you exist allows you to say, you know what, I am worthy of showing up to that track today, even if I don't feel like it. I am worthy of making sure these dreams happen. So I think every time it just goes back to the foundation of knowing you are worthy of good things.
Which is so hard to do. Like, so hard to do, even in the current climate of how things are socially. Like, you have a million messages telling you what you should be. Even down to self-care. There's a way to do self-care. How can there be a perfect way to look after yourself? You know, like, there are standards that are so high that we put on ourselves and that we see online. And because of that, it is very difficult to know whether what you're doing is good enough. But I would say the key takeaway I took from you was that I'm constantly evolving, and whatever that manifests as day to day is always going to be more than enough. And the days that I recognize that and realize that were probably the best days of my career last year. So thank you.
Thank you for investing in yourself and, you know, showing up and wanting to realize that you had some limitations and insecurities that were holding you back and you wanted to do something about it. And I think that takes me on to the next thing about high performance is, you know, you are aware of your limitations, but your limitations don't rule you. They don't run the show. You acknowledge them and you can, you know, work on them and do something about it, but it's not who you are. What's your relationship with your worth been like? Have you always kind of like known you are worthy and just kind of owned that, or has it been a bit of a roller coaster?
It's absolutely been a roller coaster. I think anyone that tells, to be fair, like I said, I listened to your mum's podcast. I was like, I wish I had like the confidence of this woman. She's unbelievable. I 100% feel like it's up and down. On a day-to-day basis, not even just the seasons of life, on a day-to-day basis, there are times where I leave a track and I just feel like, oh, that was rubbish. That wasn't good enough. Or I look in the mirror and I think, oh, I wish this or I wish that. Like, I'm human.
Yeah.
We're human. And I don't think any of us are perfect. So I don't think we should believe that we are. But it's about trying to see beauty and confidence in the parts that aren't perfect and to nurture them and to realize that without those parts, you wouldn't be as fantastic as you are. And so I'm 26 now. I'm kind of like edging towards kind of getting to, everyone says when you turn 25, you get like a good idea of who you are. And I'm edging closer day by day to realizing who I actually am. That comes with its own challenges. But I would say that I'm anchored in my values and who I know that I am. And everything away from that, the good and the bad days, it always comes down to that, my foundation of who I am. And when it comes down to it, my intuition also will navigate the decisions that I make despite the day-to-day like ups and downs that might happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So if I have a really difficult decision to make with someone in my team, or a difficult decision to make going into a race, or I'm dealing with insecurity, I realize that those things are traits and they're not states. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Okay with the gems. Okay, Imani with the gems.
And that's
Traits,
really
not
hard.
states.
Traits, not states.
Okay.
It's traits, not states. And I am so aware of what my states need to be. So in my career, I know it needs to be brave. It needs to be expressive. It needs to be intuitive. And so if those are the things that are anchoring me, whether I have a session that is bad or I go to a race and I'm feeling nervous or I don't know, something, I lose my shoes on the day, whatever it is, like I realize that those things are always ever changing. Yes. But who I am presenting each day, it never changes. And I have to kind of respect that. And it's what I apply to the rest of my life as well.
I literally want to stop. Like, this is so good. It's today's Sunday because you're taking us to church right now. That is like, I'm just so like, hit the nail on the head. And so that way you realize that those things don't define you. Yes. It comes and it goes. Yes. Energy is just, emotions are just energy in motion. When things aren't going, mistakes are happening, things aren't perfect, it is just a temporary state. It comes and it goes, but you stay strong and you stand strong in your sense of worth, in knowing who you are and knowing your values. Yeah. Those are the things that are the permanent things, that you want to build your foundation on.
It's
and everything
hard
else.
Though. It is, you know how hard it is.
It's
so hard.
Yeah.
There's this analogy that I use sometimes when I meditate before like I'm about to compete or just before a day. And it actually kind of encapsulates it really well. So like I imagine myself as this mountain and a mountain will weather storms, seasons, you might have fires alongside it, but it is solid and it almost allows you to be an observer of everything that's around you, but realize that you are staying still and you're unchanging, you're not going to move. So it might snow heavy, but it doesn't change your structure, right? Yeah, I know it's a weird analogy, but it does help me sometimes when I have really real emotions or really real fears that feel like they could literally stop me. I'm like, well, I'm way bigger than this. I'm the thing that's not going to change. I'm the thing that's not going to move. My values and my state is not going to change. Yeah. Those things come and go.
Yeah. And I think faith also plays a huge part in that, right? Because when you think about who God is and what he represents and that energy and that force, it's just like, everything I need to win in life is in me. I know my values. I know who created me. I know why I'm here. And it's like, all these other temporary things, they can hit me, but they're not going to knock me down.
Exactly.
And even if they do, I'm going to get back up and remember who I am.
Yeah.
What was your day like the day you became the third fastest woman in the UK? Was it just like an average chill? You just got up and you're like, today's the day I'm going to be like, how did that day of greatness come about?
Do you know what's so weird? Okay, so there's 3 of us at the moment in the country that are like 1, 2, and 3 of all time. So it's like such a good era of British female sprinting because even though I'm the 3rd in history, I'm still 3rd in the country of the year because we're all doing so well. Yeah. So I actually ran a personal best last season 8 times. I broke my personal best 8 times and each time solidified my place as number 3, but didn't quite like push me up. But I was still really proud of it. The first time I did it and I became number 3 was the most normal day of my life. The second time I did it again, like so unexpected. There isn't this feeling of you wake up and like, oh, today is the day. It's almost like a decision to make today the day. Do you know what I mean? I don't wake up with any kind of like magic feeling or like I've had a great conversation or training went well. Like often it is the most regular of weeks. My body is feeling regular. My mind is kind of just like, I would say the one thing I would say actually is when something good is about to happen, I feel the most me. So I don't necessarily feel special. I don't feel bad. I just feel like me. And the days where I've broken my personal best are the ones where I feel the most like true.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say that.
I think it's because you're connected to the present state.
Yeah.
And I've been reading a lot about the power of meditation and being still and being connected to your higher self, but in the present moment. And I think in those days where you're just being you, maybe it's like you're not thinking of the past, you're not thinking of, oh, what if this happens or what in the future. You're just like
I'm in the now.
Yeah, you're in the now. You're connected to your most like highest self, your wisest self in the present moment. But that's so beautiful. And I guess so then you feel most you, and then you go out there, and I know you spoke about there's shrink thinking and there's shine thinking. Yeah. So talk to me about what happens when you're on the track and then, you're about to take off.
So I guess in some ways, like what I was just saying, like there is a decision to make the most of the moment. And I think you're right. The more in the moment you can be, the more in the now that you can be, the more powerful that you are. Yeah. And that's a scary thing because your brain wants to protect you from what could happen or remind you of the things that could stop this from happening. So it's trying to protect you and you want to believe it because it's coming from an honest and like genuine place. But if you're brave enough to kind of shut all of that out and be right in the moment that you are in, that is where your true power lies. And that's where I would say that shine mentality of like, I don't care about what happened, what is to come. Yeah. I know that I'm enough right now. And that is such a simple thing to say. It could be the quietest voice. It doesn't need to be screaming in your head. Yeah. But it is so powerful and it is a decision to shine. Yeah. Shrinking actually is thinking, what does this mean? Your ego coming into it. Oh, am I good enough? Or I am good enough, or I feel amazing today, or today, like you need to just kind of trust where you're at, I would say. Yeah. And that is an element of shining that I try to kind of harness every day.
So say that again with the shine thinking, like who I am right now in this moment is enough. Is that what you say to yourself?
And that's a choice to shine. It doesn't sound fancy. It doesn't sound, I am amazing. Yeah. I am this, I am strong. Sometimes choosing to shine is just saying, thank you, brain, for like doing all of this work for me. I don't need you right now. I'm enough right now. And the races that have been special for me are those times. So I actually broke 11 seconds for the 100 meters, which is like probably the biggest race I had of recent times. Yeah. And again, that day, a normal day, I'd just come off going to the World Championships. I'd full started at the World Championships. My campaign was done in the heats, which was like so devastating for me at the time. And I remember going to this next race literally 2 weeks later, and I just decided that nothing is going to shake me today. We got to the start line. There was like a 10 to 15 minute delay. There were problems with the starter's gun. They had to change all of our blocks. The crowd was really, really loud. It was getting cold. I just said, nothing's going to shake me today, because how I am right now in this second, not next second, not before, how I am right now in this second is going to serve me how I need it to serve me. And then I end up running the best race of my life. It is the smallest and quietest of decisions that can make the biggest impact in your life. Oh, does that make sense? Yeah, sorry, I don't like preaching, but I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's just, it just goes back to that being centered, knowing that who you are right now is good enough, and not letting all the chaos around you. And so I want to know how to perform under pressure. Yeah. Right? Let's talk about that, because a lot of times, whether it's public speaking, whether it's there, the crowd is so loud and you're like, you really want to go after it. What advice would you give people as a high performer, right? To be able to perform under pressure?
So I actually love external pressure. I love it. I love walking into a stadium and it is so loud you can't hear. Yeah. I love that feeling of being in the cool room. So we have this room before we race where literally everyone you're about to race is penned into this tiny room, and you can feel everyone's heartbeats and you're scared. I love that feeling. I think where it then becomes difficult is when you start turning that feeling inwards. So pressure for me, like when you're dealing with high pressured situations, the external stuff is amazing. You need that. It's going to push you. Don't let it come into like your sacred place here. This needs to stay calm. You need to kind of, as much as there might be that inevitable pressure, try and quieten it down. I try never to put too much pressure on myself and just let the moment and the event take me to where I need to go. And I think that's a mistake that I've definitely made. I make a lot, and people do make sometimes. You think, oh my God, I'm about to do this speech. This means I need to be this. And everyone else is also expecting me to be this. Like, ignore the internal stuff. You need to just release and be. One thing my sports psychologist always used to tell me when I used to be scared about going to races when I was younger, he said, listen, you can stress and stress. It's already decided how this is going to go. It was probably decided from last week how this was going to go. Wow. So you might as well just relinquish all of those big things you're putting on yourself and just be in the moment and let the event take you there. And that's something I would say has really, really helped me.
I think that's so crucial to highlight, because in those moments we're thinking, what are people thinking of me? I need to be this, I need to be that, I need to pretend like I'm somebody else, right? And it goes back to this idea of also fake it till you make it, which I've spoken about a lot that I personally don't agree with, because it's like you're almost saying you need to be a fake version of yourself to succeed. And what you're saying is, in those high pressure moments, you don't need to fake it till you make it. You just need to know that who you are right now is good enough, and trust yourself that you already have everything you need to win inside of you. So if you're doing public speaking, for example, or you need to give a pitch or something, or you're giving a presentation, you just know that, okay, I may not have all the answers, but that's okay. In this moment, I have what it takes to succeed, and you just go with it.
Also, like, the worst case scenario or the best case scenario is like, whatever's going to be is going to be, you know? Yeah. So you might you're giving yourself the best chance just to enjoy it and to just express yourself and just be who you are. I think when you start trying to be like really rigid, even me sitting here doing this makes me feel a type of way. It changes the whole dynamic of everything that you do. Energy. It does. It really, really does. And so I think it's already been decided. It is going to be how it is. So I just need to kind of relax and like take stock and realize that like the peace in between my ears is what I need most right now. But honestly, there are times where we're doing, especially a relay, and you have to hear one person's voice out of 8 people's voices in a stadium full of like 100,000 people say the word hand. Like, it is that, it's that crazy.
That's intense.
You need to have a level of peace within your mind and in your heart and everything to be able to handle that. If the minute I start going, oh my God, it's finished.
Being still is hard though. That's a journey I'm really trying to prioritize this year, because my mind is always just feeling so frazzled. And so, the average person, listen, if you tell me let's go for brunch, I'm there. If you say Tiwa, sit down for 20 minutes and meditate, I'm like, oh God, but it's so important.
So many people can relate to that as well,
So how do you still your mind? What are some of the things you do?
So I do meditate every single day.
Oh, you do?
I do. Okay. I do. I have an app, and I just try to carve out like 10 minutes in the morning. 10 minutes of your day is nothing.
I know.
It is nothing. To be fair, I would say I do it 70% of the time. Sometimes I'm not great with it, but I do try to carve out those 10 minutes because it's, again, showing up for myself, which is so important. And it allows me to go forth in my day with an element of just centeredness and calm and peace, which I know I'm going to need because I'm a very chaotic person. I'm a very chaotic person. So I need that. I pray quite a lot, which is really important for me. I have a gratitude journal. So at the end of every day, I always try to take stock of like the most obscure, small things that I might have forgotten about that went well. So I don't know, if I got like an amazing deal or whatever, I wouldn't write that down. It would be something really small, like, I really enjoyed my bagel this morning. I really enjoyed that TikTok I saw my friend sent me. Or I really try to appreciate the small things in life. I think it brings you again back to that present moment, which is where the magic happens, really.
And I think that's big because even though you kind of mentioned that, you're not settling in number 3, also looking at number 2 and number 1, but that gratitude of the small things is so important. And because you do that, it allows you to have the fuel that you need to keep running the race, you know? I think, gratitude is a game changer. And it's scientifically proven that people who look back at their life with a sense of gratitude and achievement, you know, feel more confident and optimistic about their futures. And gratitude actually reprograms your mind for positivity. So if you're a really negative person, writing down 3 things that went well for you every single day is a great way to begin to reprogram your mind, because your mind starts to scan your day to think of all the different things that went well for you. And then your narrative becomes, you know, I like my life, things are going well for me. But if you don't reflect on things that are going well for you, you really start to give off bad vibes and low vibrations. No,
and you look at other people and say, oh, their life looks really good. And that is such a toxic way to even be. But like, it goes back to even the things that you talk about. It's so hard sometimes, especially if you've had a bad day or you're feeling bad about yourself, to see the positive, because your brain is wired to try and see negativity and stuff sometimes. So it goes down to kind of, what am I happy about today? What am I happy about this week? What am I happy about in my relationships, in my friendships, in my whatever it is? What am I happy about in myself? And that's, how many times did you ask that question? And it was radio silence in the group chat. Sometimes it can be like that. It is so important to, I guess, being still is giving yourself the space to recognize those things and let them soak in. So my gratitude journal is a very big thing.
I love that. Okay, so looking at other habits, so gratitude is a great one. What are some other habits that high performers need to, if you want to become a high performer, if you know you want to be top in your field, what are some other like habits that have really helped you on this journey? Because I'm sure not everyone, but quite a few people started off with you when you were younger with a dream to become, you know, a sprinter, make history, but not everyone stays the race, you know, stays and runs the whole full thing. So
it's such a good point, you know. I never see it that way, but it's so true.
Absolutely.
I would say, okay, there's 3 things that come to mind immediately. The first thing is to be professional.
Okay.
Professionalism is this an iteration of excellence, isn't it? You want to be excellent at everything that you do. You might not be the best, but if you show up every day with a good attitude, you're early, you're on time, you prepare. Like for us, before a session, we have to spend 20 to 30 minutes just to prepare to warm up our bodies. Make sure you give yourself that time. Make sure that you're communicating well with your team. Make sure you're communicating well within your group of training partners, that you're organized. Like, it sounds like really stupid things, but if you practice little examples of excellent behaviors, excellent habits, it manifests in the rest of your life. And that then leads into being consistent as well. I can't have, like, if I look at a training session and I have 6 reps to do outside, 6 150s, let's say, I can't just run 2 of them well and then be tired for the rest of it. You need to be consistent with whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't need to be consistency at being the best, but hold on to something. And I would say that the athletes that I've seen kind of like come and go, that are older than me, that came up with me, it's those that have just stayed the course at whatever it is that they've decided is their version of excellence, that genuinely make it. Genuinely make it. It's not always the most talented. It's not always the most lucky or whatever. It is just those that are willing to just put in the work that is right for them. And eventually, I promise you, you will see something from it. I always see that. When you look out and you think, oh my goodness, this person's just made a team after 10 years of trying. It will happen for you. You just need to stay the course.
Yeah. And Simon Sinek actually has a whole book about this called The Finite and the Infinite Game.
You told me about this. Yeah.
And when I clocked it, it just released so much pressure on me, you know, and it's not about being the first and being the absolute best, but small moments of excellence consistently over time is what brings transformational change. And I just 100%. Really want someone to get that, because we obsess so much about the finished piece, about the end, that if we just focused on, okay, what's a single bit of excellence that I can bring to my day today, right? If we just did that every single day, we would put less pressure on ourselves, we would have less anxiety, and we would just consistently build the life that we want. But we want to rush ahead. We want to be, everyone
like
glamorizes
like this.
Exactly. The best here and the best there. And we settle these unrealistic deadlines. For ourselves that are not actually healthy, but just saying, okay, what's the one thing I'm going to do excellently today? And just consistently doing that over time is where you will see results.
And it can be small. It can be so tiny. Oprah actually has this amazing speech where she talks about excellence. And she says that you could be excellent literally working like the drive-thru at McDonald's. People don't forget that. You won't forget that either. In my job, it's, am I going to take like 5 to 10 minutes just to stretch before I go to bed? What is that? It is nothing. I don't need to stretch amazingly. I don't need to be silent. I don't need to be like in... I could have YouTube on, like, it as long as I'm just doing something that is small and excellent, it will pay off in the future. 100%. Like, there's no doubts about that in my mind.
It's true. Small and excellent is better than excellent, huge,
big, grand moments, medals,
like And going back to what Simon Sinek said, he said it's about who stays in the game the longest. Because this game is never ending, right? So like the journey that we're on life, there will be people that come before you and people that come after you. And success is not about who came in first or who got to number one the fastest ever in the world. No, it's like actually who can stay in the game long enough. That's how you win, is by staying in the game. So you have to realize that life, business, work, family, all of these things are infinite. It's just like there's an infinite game, and consistency is better than big bursts of, motivation and big fires and sparklers and everything.
That's what we all want, because that's what we see online. Is that people only post the fires and sparklers. You don't see the day-to-day boring stuff that actually gets you there.
Speaking of day-to-day boring stuff, so I'm sure you have had to sacrifice a lot. In fact, I'm not sure. I know.
You know.
You have sacrificed a lot. I remember when we went for dinner and I was like trying to get you to come out and you were like, nope, going for training, bye. And the way you sped off, there was no convincing
Jacket was on back. I see like, oh.
Jacket was on. And I give into, if my friend says, oh, come on, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I really admire that about you. So talk to me about some of the sacrifices you've had to make to get to where you are today.
Oh my
because
goodness.
People see the brand deals, Nike, the gold, the medal, and all of these things. But it's like, there's some sacrifice behind that. Talk to me about that.
I've been doing this since I was about 12 or 13 years old. So it's been almost 15 years of this job. And it has really kind of, in fact, I'm not even going to call it a job. It is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle being an athlete or being a high performer of any kind of sort. It meant that I had to be missing out on a childhood to an extent. I missed out on teenage girl stuff, boy stuff, sleepovers, parties. But I don't know, like now I'm older, I'm so used to it. It is just a non-negotiable to me in my mind. And I think it's really important as a high performer to have those clear boundaries about what is going to serve you and what's not going to serve you. And in a way that is self-care to me. So I have those clear boundaries and they become so non-negotiable that like, I had an amazing dinner. We had such a good time that night. I have to go now. And that is my self-care. And I know that me going out is not serving me anymore. And so it becomes black and white. But when I was younger, I was the boring friend. I put my hands up, and I have so much to pay back for when I retire. Like I'll be at everything. But sometimes, I don't know, my career has given me a blessing in that way because I learned very, very young how to have boundaries. And it excluded a lot of people from my life, which at the time probably was really painful. And I wished I could hold on, but the people that have stayed are the ones that have understood that, and I have them forever. So that's really important.
I always say to people, like, when you set boundaries, the people who love you will not leave your life just because you've set a boundary. If they really loved you, they will understand your boundary and adjust. But if somebody walks away from your life because you've set a boundary with them, then it was like, what was their intention in the first place, you know?
Exactly. And that's painful sometimes, especially when you're young and you don't really understand. But now it is so black and white to me. I think that's a skill that I'll take throughout my life for sure.
I love how you've broken down boundaries into what serves me and what doesn't serve me. And knowing that, I think, is a great way to embrace being the boring friend. You know, sometimes you have to be boring because you have the goals and you know what you're working towards and you want to choose what's serving you. But actually, we don't want to see it as the boring friend. You're just choosing what serves you, I feel like.
Yeah, and that can be seen as very selfish, right?
Yeah.
Like and some people will see it as selfish, which I guess it is. But there's a difference between being selfish and being like full of yourself.
Yes.
And that's the edge I try to always champion in my life. And the people in my life completely understand that, which I'm grateful for. But I've had to say goodbye to some people because of that too.
Yeah. And it just means they weren't meant to be, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to that, asking yourself, okay, does this situation serve me? And then this no longer serves me. Okay. So if it's helping you get to become the person you want to be, if it's taking you closer to your dreams and your goals, right, then it serves you. And if it's taking you away from that, you know, away from the daily excellence, then that doesn't serve you. Like you said, we had a nice dinner, but we didn't need to go out afterwards. That was taking you away.
I had FOMO though.
Trust me, you did not miss anything. You didn't miss anything. Okay. So I actually usually start interviews by asking people to tell me about a time they felt confident and killing it. Have you got a moment where you just felt like...
This is such a good question.
Do
you know what? This is such... there's two times I would say. One's like a better example. When I did my TED Talk.
Okay, yeah.
When I did my TED Talk, I would say that I felt... Because I was training full time. I'm a chaotic person, as we described. I was at Fashion Week and stuff. So I didn't have the most time to prepare, but I knew what I wanted my message to be. And I was so nervous. Oh my God, I was so nervous. Didn't sleep. I was like, this is going to be rubbish. And I was watching everyone else's. I thought, this is so good. And the minute I stood on that stage, I don't know what happened. I think it was that relinquishing into the moment.
Yeah.
I've never felt so confident and so powerful. And I was so proud of myself in that moment. So that would be a good number one. Yeah. And then number two, this is very, very superficial, but I love Fashion Week. Yes. I love doing stuff that is away from my career. So anything that is away from the athletics and the sport, whether that's fashion, beauty, writing. I wrote a play at the Olympics. Like I had it performed. My book club, everything that is an expression of myself is where I feel the most confident, I would say.
Thank you for mentioning that, actually, because I want to talk really quickly about you outside of the track and what that life looks like. Because I think also when you have a goal, it can sometimes really consume you and you feel like, oh, I can only be known as an athlete. And a lot of people are afraid to rebrand themselves into other areas because people are going to think, oh, what does she know about fashion? Or people are going to judge them. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who, you know, is known for something in a specific field, but really wants to begin to branch out into other areas of their life?
I think we should all strive to be like multi-hyphenated. Like that is where life is at. Life is so short that you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't try everything. There's like a master of, a jack of all trades, master of none. Ignore that. Literally ignore that. Life is too short. Like if I want to try something for the day, I'm going to do it because I believe, like, why not? I'm brave. I'm strong. I can do what I want to do. Like for me, branching out and doing all of those different things is actually what empowers me to be better at my day job. That's what gives me the energy that I need. And I used to talk to this lady who worked with British Athletics, and she was like, your energy is not just physical. It's not just you train and then you recover. There are so many different types of mental recovery. So for me, at the Olympics, mental recovery was writing a play. That's how I actually felt like I was able to like present as the best version of myself on the track. It wasn't just having ice baths and massage, and there's other versions of recovery. And I truly believe that exploring all those different avenues is how you kind of make yourself whole. That is, again, self-care. So I strive everyone to be as multi-hyphenated as possible in life.
That is so important because you realize that, and something practical to make this practical through like what I talk about in the book is what are your values and how can you create your to-do list around your values,
yes,
right? So I think I talk about it in chapter 4. where we talk about being a high achiever and being an overachiever, actually. Yes. And part of being a high achiever is that you know your core values, you know your core passions, and you weave them into your life. So as my mom always mentioned, it's work-life integration rather than work-life balance. You weave all your different passions, because that is where fulfillment comes from.
Yes.
If you ignore all your other values and all you do is work, you are going to feel unfulfilled. Doesn't matter how passionate you are about your work. So if you ignored all your fashion and writing and all of the other things you enjoy and only focus on running, you would probably not
I've done that before, and it has been like the worst decisions. I've had years where I've decided to do that, and it's always been the bad way. I think as long as you accept that, I know I can be 100% athlete, but I also can be 100%, I don't know, writer at the same time as it happening, 100% friend. You can do those things, and me deciding to put energy into something else isn't taking energy away from that. And once you get your head around that, I feel like the world opens up for you.
And how do you not care about other people judging you about like, oh, like, what does she know about fashion? Or like, what does she know about writing? She's an athlete, you know? How do you navigate that fear of what other people might think?
Oh, that's such a good question, you know. It doesn't exist in my mind. So I don't feel like that is... It's really hard for me to relate to that, because I'm so confident in a way in what I'm doing. And I know that whenever I make decisions, I know why I'm making them. It's got to the point of my decision making where it doesn't matter what other people are going to think. Yeah. And if I know that it's a good decision, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong. Yeah. Often, people always say this, if people are talking about you, you're doing something right. Yeah. In a good way. Do you know what I mean? If people think, oh, who does she think she is? Yeah. Like, it's probably because you're doing something right. And so it doesn't bother me.
I love that. Yeah. And it shouldn't, because like, at the end of the day, your life is yours to live. And if you get to the end of your life and you haven't experimented and tried and lived out your passions because of what you think people are going to say on the internet, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be so awkward for you.
And you'll regret it.
Exactly.
You'll regret. These people don't mean anything.
Yeah. So. It's true. Exactly. Yeah. The pain of regret is so much more than the pain of, you know, trying out something, 100%. Following your passion and maybe not working out. Or what if it does, right? Yeah. You know, if you can think, what if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not good at it? You could also think, what if it does? Like, what if I am? What if
nothing to lose, everything to gain is the way that I try to live life.
Beautiful. And that is the perfect way to end this episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before I end, I want you to complete these 3 sentences. Okay. So, Imani, I love you for ... Okay.
From whose perspective?
From your perspective. Okay.
Okay.
So you have to say it to yourself.
Okay.
All right. Imani, I forgive you for ... So what do you want to forgive yourself for? And Imani, I'm proud of you for ...
Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is deep, Tiwa. I'm about to get a cab. Okay. Imani, I love you for being intuitive. Imani, I forgive you for being a perfectionist. And what was the last one? I'm proud of you. Imani, I'm proud of you for being resilient.
Amazing. That was great.
Thank
you did it on the spot. I did. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy I finally did this. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me. Thank you. And for sharing your beautiful story. And I know this episode is going to inspire so many people. And there's one of the pictures you posted, I think you were like mid-sprint. Yeah. And there was this little boy's face just like in awe. I know which one you're talking about. He was just like in awe of your greatness. And I just know that, you know, being who you are, showing up in these spaces, breaking records, breaking all the glass ceilings, like you are going to continue to inspire the next generation, especially the young women, of knowing that there is a space for them in sports, that they can thrive, that they can connect to who their true authentic self is and show up and be beautiful. So thank you.
That means so much. Thank you, Tiwa. And thank you for being you. Queen Tiwa. Yeah.